So Wave 2, Wave 1 of the Boss Fight Studio figures was already released, and Wave 2 should be getting released any day now. This includes Popeye with the white sailor suit, Poop Deck Pappy and Pookie Jones, Sea Hag, Vulture figure set, and Wimpy. So there's a lot to talk about on here. I can tell you that in my little tiny YouTube channel, um, the Popeye figures have gotten about as much attention as I've seen and about as much views. So that's pretty cool. It shows that there's a lot of interest in Popeye, and I like that because I'm a huge Popeye fan. So the question is there going to be a Wave 3? And I don't know. But if my channel is any reflection of the interest, then I think these figures probably did quite well. So the question would be, who would be in Wave 3? Now, there's only technically, well, I guess 4 new figures. Pookie Jones is pretty obscure. But Poop Deck Pappy, Sea Hag, and Wimpy. So, because Popeye is just released in a different suit. But let's assume that Wave 4 would have 4 new figures. Who would be my choice for those 4 figures? And so this is a book that I've had since I was a kid, and it really was influential on me, on my love of Popeye. It's by Bud Sagendorf, and I'm a little controversial on my feelings towards Bud Sagendorf because I read a book by Bud Sagendorf. I think that Elias Segar was a genius, and I was pretty hard on what Bud Sagendorf. I thought it was terrible. And it's interesting because Bud Sagendorf was the one guy who actually worked under Elias Segar, and he took over after Segar passed away at a rather young age. I think he was in his 50s. And I got a lot of backlash. This was an Amazon review back when Amazon allowed comments, and Popeye fans were not happy with the fact that I was criticizing Bud Sagendorf. I had this impression that he completely did not understand the characters, which is ironic since he worked directly with Segar. But this book by Sagendorf is fantastic. I really enjoy it. I think you could still buy it. It came out in the 80s or 90s, I guess in the 80s, mid 80s. But it stands the test of time. So one of the things they have in here, actually a couple, but they have the cast of characters. And so I'm actually going to do the one on the back because it's a bit easier to look at. I don't have to hold it open. So who among here has not been done that I think? So my first choice for Wave 3, if there's a Wave 3, would be Roughhouse. I think you got to have a Roughhouse. The couple characters on here, Professor O.G. Watasnozzle and John Sappo, they are not really part of the Popeye universe. They are a separate cartoon comic strip. They were also done by Segar, but I would not count them in there. So we have Coal Oil and Nana Oil. They were, and also Ham Gravy. They were more the Thimble Theater. So I would not put them high on the list. They would not make my top 4 cut, but maybe someday, because they are doing some obscure characters. Granny, I don't even remember Granny. She probably was later on in the series. I assume she was created by Segar. I think all of these characters in here were created by Segar. This is back when they called Bluto Brutus, when they had some silly misunderstandings about who owned the rights to the character. Doofus, I don't care about Doofus. Number 2 on my list would be George Giesel. So, gotta have a Giesel. Both Giesel and Roughhouse had decent-sized roles in the Robin Williams movie. So, they're important. Then it would be, so we have, Sea Hag's already done. We have King Blazo and Alice the Goon. That's a tough one. Alice the Goon, I know is more iconic. She's got such a strange face that it would almost be difficult to make that into a figure. But I'm sure it can be done. I have a soft spot for King Blazo. So if I have two spots, why not just include both? Because there's another character that is not on here that I actually prefer to include. We have Tor. Tor is basically one of the big heavies that Seagar liked to create. Just a big mountain of a man that Popeye would have to chop down. But and Brutus was like that too. In the beginning, he was Bluto the Terrible, and the only reason he became so famous as the most famous of his big heavy characters is because they decided they would just take one of the characters and added it to the cartoon, and so that's how, as part of a love triangle. I would actually like to see a figure of Ox Blood, Ox Heart. And Mezco does have that figure in there. So it's interesting that he's not included on this. He didn't make the cut here. But I would love to see a figure of that. So if it's between King Blazo and Alice the Goon, that is a tough choice because I know more people are wanting Alice the Goon. But I just have such a soft spot for King Blazo. I would go with King Blazo. And that's just my opinion. So as far as what I would like to see in Wave 4, Roughhouse, Giesel, King Blazo, and then Oxblood, Oxheart. Just that big mountain of a man. So that's my hope for Wave 3 if there is one.